The first time we reached out, it wasn't with hands or voices, but with pigment and pigment alone. We carved the unknown into the known, pressing our dreams into the bones of the earth. These marks were not just lines, they were the first whispers of a species that would one day dream of stars. We didn't just see the universe, we tried to hold it in our hands. The cave was a canvas, but it was also a mirror. It reflected not just our images, but the first flicker of a mind that dared to imagine beyond the cave itself. These walls were more than stone. They were the first pages of a story we would never finish, but one we would never stop writing. We began by drawing, and in drawing, we found the universe. The first step was not into the stars, but into the dark, into the silence that made our voices possible. We are talking about the first time humans etched their thoughts into stone, not to mark land or time, but to speak to the dark, to the silence, to the unknown. These marks were not just scratches. They were attempts to give shape to the vastness of the universe, to make the unseen feel real, to remember what could not be held. They were the first language, not of words, but of meaning, a language born in darkness, carried by firelight, and passed down through the bones of those who came before. This is where art was not made for the eyes, but for the soul, a quiet rebellion against the void, a way to say, I am here, and I saw the stars. We are talking about the moment when humanity first dared to dream in color, to speak to the silent dark, and to leave a mark that would outlive the breath of the body. You think your dreams are just yours, but every time you imagine something, you're echoing the first sparks of a species that once painted stars on cave walls, reaching for the infinite with trembling fingers. These walls were not just art, they were a language, a cry, a bridge between the known and the unknown. And you, in your quiet moments, are still speaking that same language. You don't have to be an artist to feel it. The moment you dream, you're standing in the same room where the first human ever tried to name the dark. Every time you feel the weight of your own thoughts, you're walking in the footsteps of those who once stood in darkness and dared to paint the sky. You are not just a dreamer. You are a descendant of the first ones who looked up and said, "This is not enough," and that is why you should care. The first stroke of pigment on stone is a whisper from the void, a tremor in the dark, a breath before language. We painted the stars into the darkness, not to explain them, but to remember they were there. Time collapsed. We moved from the cave to the sky, carving constellations into the fabric of our dreams. From the deep dark we emerged, carriers of fire, bearers of myth, and architects of meaning. We did not create the cosmos. We only learned how to see it. You know that feeling when you draw something and it's like the world makes sense again? That's what the first humans felt when they drew on cave walls. It was like they were talking to the stars. They didn't just draw shapes. They made stories. A bison, a hand, a star. It was their way of saying, I am here, I see, I remember. They didn't know they were making art. They were just trying to hold on to the world. And in that trying, they made something that would never fade. That first drawing wasn't just a mark. It was a promise. A promise that even when the world feels too big, we can make our own little universe. We start with silence. The earth is still. The fire is gone. Only the breath of the wind moves through the dark. We're alone, yet not alone. The walls are waiting. The hand moves. Not by choice, but by necessity. The fingers are rough, calloused, and unsteady. This is not art. This is survival. But in the movement, there is something else. Something ancient. Something sacred. The line is not just a mark. It is a question. A cry. A plea. A promise. It is the first breath of the human spirit, speaking to the stone and to the stars. The cave is no longer empty. It is filled with echoes, not of voices, but of meaning, of a people who once stood here, who once reached out, and who once dared to imagine. This is how it begins. Not with words, not with color, not with sound, but with a hand, a wall, and a moment that would shape the course of all human expression. The first mark is not just a line, but a breath held in stone, a whisper of intention, a flicker of will, a spark that would never go out. This is the moment the world is no longer enough. The human hand, once a tool of survival, now becomes a tool of thought. It etches what cannot be spoken. With each stroke, the wall becomes a mirror. It reflects not the cave, but the mind. The act of marking is the act of remembering, of naming, of claiming. The tool is not the message. The hand is not the mind. But together, they create a bridge between what is and what could be. A bridge of stone, of thought, of dream. This is the beginning of a language that does not need sound. It is written in stone, in time, in the silent, unyielding heart of the earth. The twist comes not from the hand, but from the mind. It is the first echo of thought, the flicker of a question in the dark. What if these marks are not just scratches, but stories? The hand is the tool, but the mind is the artist. It is the leap from instinct to intention, from mere touch to meaning. The wall becomes a canvas, and the cave a stage. The tool is an extension of the hand, but the symbol is an echo of the mind. It is the first step into the unknown, the first sign that humans are not just living, but dreaming. The cave is silent, but the marks are loud. They are the first words of a language yet to be spoken, the first steps of a journey that will take us beyond the walls of stone and into the stars. This is how it works. A hand, a tool, a mark, and a dream. The first twist of human imagination, born in the cold silence of a cave and echoing through the cosmos. Beneath the earth, the first hands pressed into stone, not to mark time, but to remember. A whisper of intention etched into the silence, a heartbeat echoing through the dark. The same hands that carved dreams into walls also reached for the stars. A bridge of bone and breath, from the cold dark to the endless sky. The cave walls were not just canvas, but confessional. A place where the human soul, unburdened by judgment, spoke in symbols older than language. Each mark, each line, is a fossil of a dream, a moment frozen in time, where the unknown was not feared, but embraced as part of the self. The science of it all is not in the stone, but in the silence that follows the first strike of the chisel. That is where the universe begins to sing. We are the dust that dreams of stars, the echoes that chase the void. Our hands, once clumsy, now reach for the infinite, carving meaning from the silence of the universe. The cave is not just a shelter, but a womb of thought. It holds the first whispers of the human soul, the first attempt to name the unknown, to say, this is me, this is mine. To paint a star on a cave wall is to write a letter to the cosmos. To draw a hand is to say, I have been here, I have seen, I have felt. We are not just the ones who made the art. We are the art. The cave is our first canvas, the cosmos our gallery. We are the dreamers who dared to name the dark. The cave walls and cosmic dreams are not separate. They are the same thing, seen from different angles. We are the echo, and the echo is us. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You've seen the Mona Lisa, but have you ever wondered why her smile still haunts us? Why does a 16th century painting feel like a confession from another time? Art didn't just change the world. It rewired how we see ourselves. It wasn't just paint and canvas. It was a mirror, a map, a portal to the soul. In every brushstroke, there was a question. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? This is not just a story of art. It's a story of the soul, caught between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen. The Renaissance was not a revolution in paint. It was a revolution in thinking. And it started with a single question. What if the soul is not just seen, but seen through? We're talking about a moment when humanity, after centuries of shadow, dared to look inward and see itself as more than flesh and bone. It was not just art, it was a revolution of the soul. Art became the language through which people began to speak to their own depths. It was not just about beauty, but about truth, about the raw, unfiltered pulse of being. This was not just the revival of classical forms. It was the birth of something new, something human. A mirror held up to the soul, revealing its contradictions, its dreams, its desires. To understand this revolution, we must look beyond the brush and the chisel. We must see the reflection of a soul that was no longer content to be hidden in the dark. This is not just history. It is a call to look, to feel, to remember that art is not decoration, but a window into the very heart of what it means to be human. You think art is just pretty pictures? That's the illusion. Art is the pulse of the human condition, the silent scream beneath the surface of our lives. It's not just what we see. It's what we feel, what we fear, what we hope. When you look at a Renaissance painting, you're not just seeing a portrait. You're seeing a window into a soul that understood something we often forget. That we are more than flesh and bone. We are stories, and stories are sacred. You should care because you are part of that story. Every time you look at a painting, you are witnessing the echo of a soul that once asked, what is it to be human? And you, too, are asking that question every day. Art doesn't just reflect the soul, it shapes it. The Renaissance taught us that beauty is not a distraction, but a revelation. It's a mirror, but also a map. And if you look closely enough, you'll see yourself in it. The Renaissance began not with a shout, but with a whisper, a breath of change in the still air of medieval Europe. It was a time when the world began to turn, and with it, the human spirit found new light. In the shadow of the church, scholars dared to look beyond the divine. They saw the world not as a mystery, but as a canvas, one that could be painted, studied, and understood. The Renaissance was not just about art. It was about the soul. It was a time when the human became the measure of all things, and the soul found its mirror in the brushstrokes of a painter or the lines of a poet. In the span of a few decades, the world changed. The old was not erased, but transformed, reborn in color, in form, in thought. The Renaissance was the moment when humanity began to see itself anew. Imagine a world where art isn't just pictures on walls, but a way to see inside yourself. The Renaissance taught people to look not just at the world, but at their own hearts. They learned that every brushstroke, every shape could tell a story about who we are. Art became a mirror, and we started to see our own reflections in it. So when we look at Renaissance art, we're not just seeing pretty pictures. We're seeing a question. What is it to be human? And how do we show that in color and shape? In the end, art is like a mirror. It doesn't tell us what to feel, but it helps us see what's already there. And that's the most powerful thing of all. Before the brush meets the canvas, there is a silence, a quiet tension between the artist and the world. It is in this stillness that the first spark of creation is kindled, a whisper of the soul seeking form. The artist begins with a blank surface, a space that holds infinite possibilities. It is not empty. It is waiting, a mirror reflecting the unseen depths of the human spirit. The first stroke is a gesture, a moment of surrender to the unknown. It is not just paint on canvas. It is the artist's voice, the first word in a language only they can fully understand. In this moment, the artist is not just creating, they are revealing. The canvas becomes a portal, a window into the unspoken, the hidden, the essence of what it means to be human. This is the beginning, not of a painting, but of a journey. A journey into the soul, where every mark is a step, and every color is a truth waiting to be uncovered. The mechanism begins with the artist's hand, guided by vision, translating the ineffable into form. It is not mere replication, but revelation. Each stroke is a question, each color a whisper. What is the soul's shape? And how can it be held in pigment and light? The artist becomes a vessel, channeling the unseen into the seen, bridging the gap between the celestial and the corporeal. It is the process of surrender, letting the vision take hold, not just the hand, but the heart, the mind, the very spirit. In this act of creation, the artist does not merely paint. They translate the soul's language into a visual psalm. The clever twist lies not in the act of creation, but in the quiet rebellion of the artist against the divine order. They don't just imitate nature. They reveal its soul. They dared to believe that the human form, the human gaze, the human emotion, was as divine as the heavens themselves. They made the soul visible. The artist became both prophet and mirror, reflecting the viewer's own soul back at them. In this way, art ceased to be a window and became a mirror. This was the true revolution. Not just to see the world as it is, but to see it as it might be, through the eyes of the human spirit, unbound by dogma or doctrine. Beneath the brushstrokes and marble chisels, there is a silent, scientific pulse, a rhythm of observation, measurement, and proportion that quietly reshaped the world. They did not just paint the world, they dissected it, mapping its dimensions with precision, as if to reveal the very architecture of existence itself. This was not mere art. It was a language, a science, a way of seeing the world as something to be understood, not just admired. The Renaissance was not only an age of rebirth, it was an age of discovery, where the human mind, armed with curiosity and precision, began to grasp the vastness of its own potential. Imagine a mirror that doesn't just reflect your face, but your very soul. Not in a clear image, but in the shape of a painting, a sculpture, a dance. This mirror isn't made of glass, but of pigment and light, and it shows not what you are, but what you are becoming. Your hopes, your fears, your hidden truths. Art is the mirror that doesn't lie. It doesn't show you what you think you are, but what you are capable of becoming. And in that moment, we are not just looking at art. We are looking at ourselves, unflinching, unembellished, and unashamed. So let's not be afraid of the mirror. Let's be grateful for it shows us not just who we are, but who we might still become. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. In the shadow of the industrial age, something strange began to bloom, like a seed buried beneath the noise of progress, waiting for the right moment to crack through the surface. It wasn't the machines that inspired it, but the quiet rebellion of the human spirit, searching for meaning in a world that had lost its way. This was not a revolution of violence or power, but of thought and imagination, an attempt to reimagine reality itself. And so, from the ashes of tradition, the Avant-Garde was born, a movement that would challenge the world to see, feel, and think differently. It was an act of defiance, a whisper in the noise of the modern world, and the first note of a symphony yet to be written. We're talking about a rupture, a moment when art ceased to be about representation and became about rupture itself, when the canvas was no longer a mirror, but a wound. This was not a rejection of the past, but an interrogation of it. A demand to look beyond the surface, beyond the form, and into the space between meaning and absence. The avant-garde was not a movement in the traditional sense. It was an attitude, a radical refusal to be confined by the expectations of art, life, or truth. It was a search for something new, something that could only be found by destroying the old. A search that often left the artist questioning whether they had created something or merely unmade it. In this moment, art became a space for confrontation with itself, with the world, with the void that lies at the edges of everything we know. You might not see the avant-garde in your daily life, but it shapes the way you think about what is possible. It whispers in the corners of culture, pushing the boundaries of how we understand art and meaning. These movements were not just about rebellion. They were about redefining the very fabric of creativity. They asked, what if the world isn't just what it seems? What if meaning is built in ways we've never considered? You should care because these movements laid the groundwork for how we interpret reality. They taught us that meaning can be found not just in what is said, but in what is left unsaid, in the spaces between. The avant-garde is like a mirror held up to the world, not to reflect it, but to challenge it. It asks you to look again, to question, to feel something deeper than the surface tells you. Secretly, you already care. Every time you engage with something new, a film, a piece of music, a concept, you are part of a long tradition of questioning, of pushing, of reimagining what it means to create. The avant-garde did not emerge in a vacuum. It was born from the tension between tradition and transformation, between the known and the uncharted. In the late 19th century, artists began to question the very foundations of art itself, seeking new forms of expression beyond the limits of realism. The Impressionists, though not avant-garde in the strictest sense, set the stage by rejecting academic norms and embracing spontaneity. Their brushstrokes, their colors, their very way of seeing. These were radical acts of defiance against the past. Surrealism followed, not as a rejection of data, but as its evolution. The dream, the unconscious, the irrational, these became the new language of art. Freud's theories were not just tools for psychoanalysis, they were a revolution in perception. By the mid-20th century, the avant-garde had become a global movement, no longer confined to Paris or Berlin. It took root in New York, in Tokyo, in Sao Paulo. It became a language of resistance, a form of protest, a way to say, this is not how it is supposed to be. Today, the avant-garde lives on in the margins, in the subcultures, in the digital and the decentralized. It is not a movement of grand gestures, but of quiet, persistent questioning. It is the whisper that challenges the world to see differently. Imagine you're playing with blocks, but instead of building a castle, you try to build something no one has ever seen before. That's what the avant-garde is, making art that breaks the rules. It's not about making things look pretty. It's about asking questions, about seeing the world in a new way, even if it hurts your brain a little. Sometimes the avant-garde is loud and strange. Sometimes it's quiet and deep. But always, it's trying to show you something you didn't know you were missing. It's like learning to read a new language, one that speaks not just to your mind, but to your soul. And that's the magic of the avant-garde. It doesn't just change art. It changes how we see the world. The avant-garde begins not with a revelation, but with a question, a quiet, unspoken challenge to the way we see the world. It is a moment of radical doubt, where the familiar is questioned and the possible is reimagined. This questioning is not impulsive. It is rooted in a deep awareness of the past, of what has been done before and of what has been left undone. The avant-garde is born from a refusal to accept the status quo. This is where the artist begins to isolate a concept, to extract it from its context, and to place it in a new, often contradictory space. The setup is the first step in dismantling and reassembling meaning. In this act of isolation, the avant-garde does not seek clarity, but ambiguity. It seeks to unsettle, to disrupt the expectations of the viewer, to force them to see with new eyes. The setup is not about spectacle. It is about intention. It is the beginning of a radical rethinking of what art can be, and what it can do to those who engage with it. The mechanism begins with a refusal to conform, a quiet but deliberate act of defiance against the norms of the time. This is not a scream, but a measured silence that speaks volumes in its own right. It is a process of unlearning, of peeling back the layers of accepted reality to reveal what lies beneath. This is where the artist begins to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. The artist then translates this vision into form, not through replication, but through abstraction. The canvas becomes a battleground, where the old and the new collide and reshape one another. This is the moment of rupture, when the act of creation becomes an act of resistance, and the canvas becomes a mirror reflecting the chaos and beauty of a world on the edge of transformation. The mechanism is not just about creation, but about the quiet insistence that the world can be reimagined, that it must be reimagined if it is to move forward. The clever twist is not a mere flourish, but a calculated rupture in logic, a deliberate deflection of expectation, designed to challenge the viewer's sense of stability and meaning. It is this twist that transforms the avant-garde from mere experimentation into a form of radical interrogation, forcing the audience to confront their own assumptions about art, reality, and perception. It is this moment of disorientation that the avant-garde seeks to evoke. A suspension of meaning, a confrontation with the limits of language, and a redefinition of what art can be. The clever twist is not just a trick. It is an intellectual and emotional provocation, a refusal to be bound by the conventions of representation, and an assertion of art's capacity to unsettle and transform. In this way, the avant-garde does not merely create art. It creates a space for thought, for doubt, for the possibility that meaning is not fixed, but fluid, contingent, and constantly being redefined. Beneath the chaos of creation, there is an order, a rhythm, a frequency that guides the hand and the mind. It is not always heard, but it is always there, the pulse of the avant-garde beating in the marrow of the artist. The avant-garde is not just a rebellion against tradition, but a dialogue with the unseen structures that shape our world. It is science in motion, a force that bends the rules of perception. In the quiet moments of the creative process, the artist becomes an observer of the unseen, measuring the space between thoughts, the distance between ideas, the pulse of a new beginning. This is the science of becoming, the hum of the unknown, the silent language of the avant-garde, not spoken, but felt, not seen, but known. To be an avant-garde is to be in tune with this frequency, to hear the silent song beneath the noise, to feel the weight of the world and to shape it into something new. Think of the avant-garde not as a movement, but as a seed. It starts small, unseen, buried in the soil of tradition, waiting for the right conditions to sprout. When it breaks through, it's not to replace the old, but to challenge it. It grows in strange directions, bending the rules of form, meaning, and purpose. Like a child learning to walk, it stumbles, falls, and gets up again. It's not about perfection, but the act of trying to move beyond the limits of what was known. And in this struggle, it becomes something more than art. It becomes a mirror, reflecting the tension between what is and what could be, what is known and what is possible. It's not a destination, but a process, A gloriously dumb but accurate analogy for how we think, how we feel, and how we begin to see the world differently. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You've seen it. That impossible blend of human emotion and machine precision. A painting that feels like it was born from a dream, yet was created by lines of code. It's not just art anymore. It's a conversation between past and future, between imagination and algorithm, between the human hand and the digital mind. This is the next frontier of creative evolution, a place where the rules of art are rewritten and the boundaries of creativity are pushed beyond what we thought possible. But what does it mean for the artist, the creator, the dreamer? This is not just about tools. It's about redefining the very essence of what it means to create. Welcome to the future of art, a world where the impossible becomes possible and where the creative process is no longer just human. So, what exactly are we talking about? AI art isn't just about pretty pictures. It's a whole new way of thinking about creation, where machines learn from vast amounts of data and then generate original work that can be stunningly complex. This isn't just about replicating what's already out there. AI can create things that never existed before, like a fusion of styles from different eras, or entirely new visual languages that challenge our understanding of beauty and form. But here's the thing. AI isn't replacing human creativity. It's expanding it. Artists are using these tools to explore new dimensions, to push the boundaries of what's possible, and to ask questions about authorship, originality, and the nature of art itself. It's like having a collaborator that never sleeps, that can generate hundreds of ideas in seconds, but still requires a human to guide the vision, to add meaning and context that a machine can't grasp on its own. So when we talk about AI art, we're not just talking about technology. We're talking about the future of human expression, the evolving relationship between artist and tool, and the redefinition of creativity in the digital age. You might not think you care about AI art, but you're already using it. Every time you scroll through social media, you're seeing AI-generated images that shape your tastes, influence your mood, and even change how you think about beauty and creativity. AI isn't just creating art. It's redefining what art is. It's blurring the lines between creator and tool, between originality and imitation, and forcing us to rethink what it means to be creative in a world where machines can now think, feel, and create. AI art is not just a tool. It's a mirror. It reflects our deepest desires, our hidden fears, and our collective imagination. And the more it evolves, the more it forces us to confront what we value in creativity, in art, and in ourselves. At its core, AI art is a conversation between human and machine, between past and future, between what we know and what we don't yet imagine. And whether you realize it or not, you're already part of that conversation. Before AI, art was a slow, solitary act. Artists spent years mastering their craft, each brushstroke a testament to patience and precision. It was a world where creation was deeply personal, shaped by human experience and emotion. The digital revolution changed everything. Artists began using computers as their new tools, experimenting with new forms of expression. The shift from canvas to screen opened up infinite possibilities. But still, it was a human hand that guided the process. Then came the algorithms. Machines started learning from human creativity, analyzing thousands of images to find patterns, styles, and even emotions. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was a collaborator, a co-creator. AI art isn't replacing artists. It's expanding the canvas. It's allowing us to explore new dimensions of creativity, to push boundaries we never thought possible. The future isn't just about machines. It's about the way humans and machines learn to coexist in the creative process. The journey from brush to code has been long. but it's only just beginning. We're not just creating art with AI. We're redefining what art can be. It's a new chapter in the story of human creativity. Imagine you have a magic pencil that can draw anything you think of, even things you've never seen before. That's what AI art is like. It listens to your ideas and makes them real. But instead of a pencil, it's like having a super smart artist who never gets tired and knows every color, shape, and style you've ever loved. It's not just copying what's already there. It's mixing things up, making new stuff. Like a creative friend who's always inventing new games. So AI art isn't just making pictures. It's helping us imagine new worlds. And that's the start of something really cool. Before any brush is touched or pixel is placed, AI art begins with a foundation of data. Artists feed the machine a vast collection of images, landscapes, portraits, abstracts, each one a piece of the puzzle that will shape the final creation. These images are not just random snapshots. They're curated, categorized, and carefully organized. The AI learns from them, absorbing patterns, colors, and styles, like a child learning to recognize shapes and textures. The setup is more than just feeding data. It's about defining the rules of the game. Artists choose parameters like style, mood, and composition, setting the boundaries within which the AI will operate. It's a delicate balance between human vision and machine logic. The artist sets the stage, but the AI is the director, translating abstract ideas into visual form through its learned patterns and algorithms. In this first step, the real collaboration begins. The artist isn't just instructing the AI, they're co-creating, guiding the machine through a process that's both intuitive and algorithmic. Once the artist inputs their initial idea, the AI begins to process the image as a complex set of patterns, colors, shapes, textures, and even emotional tones. It doesn't just see the image, it deciphers the underlying structure, like a detective piecing together clues from a crime scene. Behind the scenes, the AI uses a neural network that's been trained on millions of images. Think of it like a massive, invisible library of art history, where every brushstroke and composition is stored as data points, ready to be recalled and recombined. Next, the AI generates a new version by mixing these patterns in unexpected ways. It might take a texture from a Renaissance painting and apply it to a modern sculpture, or blend the mood of a sunset with the structure of a cityscape. It's like a silent conversation between past and present. But here's the key. The AI doesn't create in isolation. It's a tool that responds to human input, learning from each interaction. Every prompt, every tweak, every feedback loop refines its understanding, making it more than just a machine. It becomes a collaborator in the creative process. So in this second step, the AI becomes a translator, turning human intention into a visual language. It doesn't just replicate. It reimagines, reinterprets, and redefines what art can be in the age of machines. Now, here's the clever twist. AI art isn't just about generating images from prompts. It's about learning from the past, understanding style, and then reimagining it in ways humans might never think of. It uses neural networks to analyze millions of images, not just to copy, but to understand the underlying patterns, textures, and emotional tones that make a piece of art resonate. This is where AI art becomes more than a tool. It becomes a collaborator, a co-creator, pushing the limits of what we think art can be. So in this third step, we're not just watching technology at work. We're witnessing the birth of a new artistic language, one that's shaped by both human vision and machine logic. At the heart of AI art lies a dance of numbers and patterns, where neural networks parse and reassemble the visual world in ways that feel both foreign and familiar. These algorithms don't just mimic art. They analyze it, dissect it, and then recombine it into something new, often with a subtle but undeniable sense of the unexpected. What makes AI art so fascinating is that it's not just about replication. It's about the creation of new visual languages, born from the collision of data and imagination. The science is silent, but its influence is everywhere, reshaping how we see, create, and even define what it means to be an artist in the 21st century. In the quiet hum of the machine, there's a kind of creative evolution unfolding, one that we're only beginning to understand. Imagine a painter who never learned to hold a brush, yet somehow creates stunning portraits using only their fingers and a canvas. That's the absurd yet true analogy for AI art. It doesn't think in the way we do, but it can produce results that make us pause. It's not that AI is trying to be creative. It's more like a machine that has been trained on a lifetime of human creativity, and now it can replicate that without understanding the meaning behind it. This isn't about replacing human creativity. It's about expanding it. AI is the ultimate collaborator, not a rival. And the real magic happens when we let it help us see what we've never seen before. So, in the end, AI art is like a child learning to draw by watching the worlds. It imitates, it adapts, and it creates something new, even if it doesn't understand why. It's gloriously dumb, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. It doesn't think, it learns, and in doing so, it opens a door to a new kind of creativity we never imagined. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.